Today's lesson is gaslighting, how to spot and stop it. Hello, everybody. My name is Roger.
And I'm Helen.
And today we're talking about a concept called gaslighting. This is kind of a psychological concept, right, Helen?
Yes, this is a concept that usually can be observed between two people who have a relationship with one another. And it doesn't have to be any particular type of relationship. It could be between a parent and child, a boss and worker, boyfriend, girlfriend, couples. But it is a type of unhealthy relationship that some people may not even know that is affecting them. So it's good to talk about it and to make people realize that it exists.
Right, so we should talk about the concept of gaslighting itself. Gas lights are the way cities were lit in the past. Before electricity, they used gas lights, and that produced a different kind of light altogether. But nowadays, of course, we have electricity. And this concept, though, however, has to do with psychology, gaslighting, and we'll find out what this is all about right now. So let's jump right in and listen to the first part. It's kind of long, so pay special attention.
Gaslighting, how to spot and stop it.
You're overreacting. I was just joking. You're imagining things. I swear it never happened. If a person repeatedly says these things to you when you confront them about their bad behavior, then that person may be gaslighting you. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation that occurs when one person tries to gain control over another by lying, trivializing the other's feelings, or casting blame on the other. Often, the person being gaslit ends up feeling inadequate, insecure, and perhaps even doubtful of their own judgments. This form of manipulation is observed most often in romantic relationships, but it can also occur between friends and family members.
大家好，第一部分我们看到动词 confront 表示与点点点当面对质，与点点点对峙，勇敢面对。举例来说 By confronting those who bullied her, Laura learned to protect herself. 藉由挺身对抗霸凌她的人 Laura 学会了保护自己。或是 Every time we begin a new task, we must confront the possibility of failure. 我们每次开始一个新的任务时，我们必须勇敢面对失败的可能性。另外补充这个字的名词 confrontation C-O-N-F-R-O-N-T-A-T-I-O-N confrontation 意思是冲突或是对峙。我们可以说 Although she was certain her manager was wrong, Mildred kept quiet to avoid confrontation. Mildred 虽然确定她的主管是错的，但她保持安静以避免冲突。或者Penelope did not complain to her neighbor about the noise as she feared confrontation. Penelope 没有向她邻居抱怨噪音，因为她害怕产生冲突。
So today's lesson is gaslighting, how to spot it and stop it. Now the first sentence goes like this. You're overreacting. I was just joking. You're imagining things. I swear it never happened. So here we have a few examples of things that a gaslighter might say. The first thing is you're overreacting. So to overreact means to be more worried and more annoyed or offended by something that someone else has done than you should be. And this is something that a gaslighter might say to another person. And the gaslighter might also say, I was just joking. You're imagining things. I didn't do what you said I did. So these are phrases that somebody might often hear.
I often hear here in Taiwan, you're thinking too much. That's used quite common, but it's a similar phrase. You're overreacting. I was just joking. You're taking it too seriously. You're imagining things. I swear it never happened. It isn't how you think. Well, if a person repeatedly says these things to you, when you confront them about their bad behavior, then that person may be gaslighting you. So sometimes a person may be bothering you by their behavior, and eventually you decide to confront them. You finally decide to say, hey, your behavior is making me feel uncomfortable. I don't like it. I'd like you to change. And that's an example of confronting someone. Most of us don't like confrontation. Of course, we like to just keep on living and not be bothered by things. But sometimes we are brave enough to actually confront the person who is causing us trouble.
Yes, because you don't want them to continue with their bad behavior, so you might confront them about it. But what a gaslighter will do is they will gaslight you and say, you're overreacting. I was just joking. You're imagining things. So gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation that occurs when one person tries to gain control over another by lying, trivializing the other's feelings, or casting blame on the other. Now, this is a very long sentence with a lot of concepts in it, but it's a basic definition of gaslighting. First of all, gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation. Manipulation is behavior that influences someone or controls something in a sort of dishonest way. So psychological manipulation refers to the attempt to control what somebody thinks and how somebody reacts to something that's been done.
And that psychological manipulation occurs when one person tries to gain control over another by doing various things like lying, trivializing the other's feelings, or casting blame on the other. Of course, lying means not telling the truth, and to trivialize someone's feelings is just to say, oh, that's not a big deal, you're exaggerating, you're making a big deal out of this, you're making a mountain out of a molehill, but that person may think those feelings are real, but you're just trivializing them, you're making them seem unimportant, and then you cast blame on the other person. In other words, you blame them, it's your fault, this is because of you, not because of me.
Right. And often the person being gaslit ends up feeling inadequate, insecure, and perhaps even doubtful of their own judgments. So the person being gaslit may have confronted the gaslighter about their bad behavior, but then the gaslighter comes back with psychological manipulation. As a result of this, the person being gaslit might end up feeling inadequate, which means they feel like they're not good enough or they're lacking in some quality and confidence, for instance, or they might feel insecure, which is another way of saying that they don't feel confident about themselves. And they may even doubt their own judgments. So in the beginning, maybe they were convinced that the gaslighter was behaving badly, but after what the gaslighter says to them, the person being gaslit might think, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I was making a mountain out of a molehill.
Indeed. So that's what a gaslighting person will do. They'll make you feel inadequate. You'll be insecure. You'll not be confident in yourself. And again, you'll be doubtful about yourself. And this form of manipulation is observed most often in romantic relationships. He did this to her. She did this to him, etc. But it can also happen or occur between friends and family members, or between co-workers, classmates, etc., etc. So be on the lookout for this thing. Make sure you're not gaslighting somebody or somebody else is not gaslighting you. Okay, that brings us to the end of the first part of our lesson for today. Let's move on now to the second part.
Gaslighters typically deny or downplay their wrongdoing. For example, if you call a gaslighter out for saying something hurtful, they might deny having said that thing or claim you're just being overly sensitive. Such denial and deflection can make victims second-guess themselves and wonder whether they are indeed misremembering things or making a big deal out of nothing. A gaslighter may even shift the blame to you for whatever wrong they committed. If you were to confront a gaslighter for, say, being too controlling, they might reply, If you weren't such an airhead, I wouldn't have to tell you what to do all the time. As a consequence, the victim is left believing they're the one responsible for the gaslighter's bad behavior.
第二部分我们看到单字 denial， 这个字是名词，指否认、否定或是拒绝接受。例如 The police did not believe Mary's denial of the crime. 警察不相信 Mary 否认犯罪的说辞。也可以说 Despite the bills piling up, Dan was in denial about his financial trouble. 尽管账单越积越多， Dan 还是拒绝接受他的财务问题。另外补充这个字的动词 deny, D-E-N-Y, deny, 表示否定或是否认。像是 The man denied the charges of theft, but he was still put in jail. 那个人否认偷窃的指控，但他还是被关进监牢里。
So let's look more closely at what a gaslighter might do. Gaslighters typically deny or downplay their wrongdoing. So first of all, a gaslighter might downplay, which means to make something seem less serious than it is, and they'll downplay their wrongdoing. Wrongdoing means something that they have done wrong.
Right, so they'll just say, I did not do that. That's not true. I deny that. Or you downplay your wrongdoing. Hey, that's not so bad. Maybe I did that, but it's not really such a big deal. Now, for example, if you call a gaslighter out for saying something hurtful, they might deny having said that thing or claim you're just being overly sensitive, you're making a big deal out of this, etc. So this is an example here. If you call a gaslighter out for saying something hurtful. We've got the phrase here to call someone out for something. That just means you tell them the bad thing that they did. Usually when people do bad things, we don't want to cause trouble and we just kind of forget about it and hope nothing bad happens. But sometimes we feel like we need to call someone out for something. Hey, you said that thing and it's bad. So you might call someone out for saying something hurtful. Hey, you said that mean thing and that was not nice. I want to let you know that I don't like that. But the person may deny having said that thing, or they'll claim you're just being overly sensitive. Oh, you're too sensitive. It wasn't that big a deal. Or they might even claim that they didn't even say it in the first place.
Yes, and such denial and deflection can make victims second-guess themselves and wonder whether they are indeed misremembering things or making a big deal out of nothing. So when a gaslighter reacts by saying, that was nothing, you're just overreacting to something that you have blamed them of doing, then they are denying or they are deflecting your accusations. So a denial is the noun form of the verb to deny, and a denial is a statement that something isn't true or didn't happen. So a gaslighter might use denial to downplay what you accuse them of, and also deflection. Deflection is the act of moving attention away from one thing to another. For instance, if a politician doesn't want to answer certain questions that reporters might ask them, then the politician might deflect or use the tactic of deflection to avoid answering those questions.
It's like, as you say in Chinese, 打太极拳, you just kind of try to move the accusation away in a different direction so that it does not fall on you. And this makes the victims second guess themselves, which means you're kind of insecure, you're not sure if you are correct in your accusation of the gaslighter, and then you'll start to wonder whether you indeed misremembered something. Well, maybe you didn't really do that. Maybe I'm remembering this wrong, and that you are making a big deal out of nothing. Maybe I am worrying too much about this thing. I'm thinking too much, and yes, maybe you're right. I am making a mountain out of a molehill.
Yes, and a gaslighter may even shift the blame to you for whatever wrong they committed. So if a gaslighter committed a wrong, if they did something wrong, then instead of saying, I'm sorry, or you're right, I did make a mistake, I won't do it again, they will often blame you for whatever wrong they did. So here we have the verb to commit. To commit just means to do, but to commit is usually associated with negative actions. So we often say to commit a crime, to commit murder, to commit a sin, or to commit burglary. So we won't often use commit with positive actions.
And if you were to confront a gaslighter for, say, being too controlling, they might reply, if you weren't such an airhead, I wouldn't have to tell you what to do all the time. Airhead, of course, just means somebody who's not very smart.
Yes, and as a consequence, the victim is left believing they're the one responsible for the gaslighter's bad behavior. So the victim is left believing, yeah, I guess I'm an airhead. I guess I'm really silly or stupid, or I forget things all the time. So it's really not his fault or her fault that they're so controlling because they have no choice, because I'm not really capable of thinking for myself.
Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson for today. Let's continue talking about gaslighting in the third and final part of today's lesson.
When gaslighters deceive others, they tend to stick to their lies, even when presented with evidence to the contrary. Consequently, the person being gaslit may eventually begin to question their own perception of reality, even when they know for a fact the gaslighter is lying. Clearly, being a victim of gaslighting is detrimental to one's well-being, so it's important to know what to do in such a situation. Since gaslighters tend to lie, try to save anything, pictures, text messages, or emails that can serve as evidence of the truth. Keeping a journal is also an effective way of validating your feelings and experiences. Furthermore, talk to a friend, family member, or mental health expert about what you're going through, as they could offer a fresh perspective on your situation. And if all else fails, perhaps it's time to end your relationship with the gaslighter. After all, your mental health is at stake.
"第三部分我们看到动词 deceive 指欺骗或是蒙骗。例如 Nigel deceived his wife by keeping his true income hidden from her. Nigel 蒙蔽太太，不让她知道她的真实收入。或是 Beware of people you meet online. They may deceive you into giving them large amounts of money. 小心你在网络上认识的人，他们可能会骗你，叫你给他们很大一笔钱。最后我们看到单字 contrary， 这个字是名词，意思是相反的事物或是对立面。举例来说 Ian thinks that there are living beings on other planets, but I believe the contrary. Ian 觉得其他星球有生命存在，但我看法相反。也可以说 I thought Enya would be happy about the news, but she was the contrary. 我以为 Enya 听到这个消息会很开心，但正好相反。另外补充一个含有 contrary 在内的片语 on the contrary， 表示相反的。像是 I'm not angry with you at all. On the contrary, I'm proud of what you did. 我一点都不生你的气，相反的，我以你的作为为荣。或是 We all thought that the weather was going to be sunny. On the contrary, it started raining. 我们都以为天气会很晴朗，结果却反而下起雨了。
So here is another characteristic of gaslighters. When gaslighters deceive others, they tend to stick to their lies even when presented with evidence to the contrary. So a classic example is in a couple if one person cheats on another. That is a form of deception. So when you cheat on somebody, you deceive them. To deceive means to lie to someone or to trick them by behaving in a dishonest way. And when gaslighters deceive, they tend to stick to their lies even when presented with evidence to the contrary. So if somebody tells them, I have proof that you cheated or that you're lying to me, you're deceiving me, even proof in the form of pictures or text messages, the gaslighter will stick to their lies and say, nope, that's not true. I didn't do it.
Yep, they will continue to deny the accusation despite evidence to the opposite or to the contrary, and consequently, or as a result, the person being gaslit may eventually begin to question their own perception of reality, even when they know for a fact the gaslighter is lying. So yes, consequently, as a result of the gaslighter sticking to their lies, the person being gaslit, well, eventually, after time, in the end, they might start to doubt or question their own perception of reality. Maybe I'm not seeing things objectively. Maybe that person is right. Maybe I'm the one who's wrong and they are right. But still, you know they're lying. I guess for convenience, you just kind of blame yourself.
Right. So, for instance, you might see your boyfriend, your girlfriend in a restaurant and they're holding hands, and then you confront your boyfriend or girlfriend about it later, and then that person will say, no, that never happened, or you're reading into it. We were just friends, or we were just talking, and you know in your heart that that's not true. But then the gaslighter is so convincing in denying reality that you begin to doubt your own eyes and your own thoughts. So clearly, being a victim of gaslighting is detrimental to one's well-being, so it's important to know what to do in such a situation.
Yep, it's detrimental. It's bad to you. It will affect your well-being. So it's important to know what to do if this happens to you. Now, since gaslighters tend to lie, try to save anything, pictures, text messages, or emails that can serve as evidence of the truth. You could probably even get video footage or something like that from a security camera. And these things can act as evidence. They can be evidence of the truth. So you have the truth on your side. Don't let the gaslighting person manipulate you. Keeping a journal is also an effective way of validating your feelings and experiences. To validate means to make something true, to find the evidence and believe it's the truth so that you don't doubt it.
Right, because maybe you will think or feel a certain way one day, and then you write that down so that in a week you remember how you felt in that moment when you made a discovery or realized you were being gaslit. So you remember your own feelings and your own thoughts. Furthermore, talk to a friend, family member, or mental health expert about what you're going through, as they could offer a fresh perspective on your situation.
Indeed. So talk to somebody, a friend, a family member, etc., and they might give you some advice. And if all else fails, perhaps it's time to end your relationship with the gaslighter. So you can try everything, and if the gaslighter continues to deny the accusations and does not change, does not turn over a new leaf, well, maybe it's time for you to end your relationship. Break up with that person if they're your boyfriend or girlfriend, or just don't have anything to do with that person anymore. After all, in the end, your mental health is at stake. Something's at stake. That means it's at risk. Something bad could happen to it.
Right. You can also say that people's lives are at stake if they're in a very dangerous situation. Here, your mental health is at stake. Your mental health might be damaged, or it might be in danger because of your relationship with the gaslighter.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. We need to hear one more time from Hanny.
Hello 各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny， 我们来练习篇章结构的题型哦。好，这篇文章是关于 gaslighting 煤气灯效应。那我们来快速浏览4个选项的句子。A. Since gaslighters tend to lie try to 我们一开始也许不会知道什么是 gaslighter 文章通常它会有线索或是解释说明，那我们可以判断这个选项呢，它是在解释完之后要提供建议，告诉读者说在面对经常说谎的 gaslighter 的时候呢，可以怎么做。所以选项 A 呢可能会出现文章的后半部分哦。好，再来 B. For example, if you call a gaslighter out for saying something hurtful, they might deny 这边就是在举例说明 gaslighter 会有怎样的行为。如果你指责 gaslighter 说了伤人的话，他们可能会否认。好，再来 C. Consequently, the person being gaslit may eventually begin to question their own perception of reality. 这里是用到 gaslight 的过去分词 gaslit 那我们就可以得知 gaslight 是一种行为。那被 gaslight 的人呢，也许最后会开始质疑自己对现实的认知。再看到选项 D, gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation that occurs when one person tries to gain control over another by ... 这个选项就是在说明 gaslighting 是一种心理操纵形式，一个人试图借由一些手段来控制另一个人。那我们可以推断这个句子可能会出现文章的这个前半部分。好，那我们现在来做题目吧。文章第一段是在举例说明说 gaslighting 这个行为的人所常说的话，去点出本文的主旨。然后呢，我们的第一个空格就出现在第二段的第一句，所以可以合理推断这句是要说明什么是 gaslighting 煤气灯效应。那我们最适合答案是选 D, gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation that occurs when one person tries to gain control over another by lying, trivializing the other's feelings, or casting blame on the other. 煤气灯效应是一种心理操纵形式，发生在一个人试图借由说谎轻视对方的感受或怪罪对方来控制另一个人的时候。好，再来第二个空格呢，是出现在第三段的第二句。我们看到空格前一句他说，这个情感操纵者经常会否认或是淡化他们的不当行为。那空格下一句又说 such denial and deflection ... 这个 denial 是否认， deflection 是转移，所以我们就可以知道说空格里面的内容会跟否认还有转移有关。那最适合答案就是选项 B. For example, if you call a gaslighter out for saying something hurtful, they might deny having said that thing or claim you're just being overly sensitive. 例如，如果你指责情感操纵者说了伤人的话，他们可能会否认曾说过的那些话，这边就是否认的部分，或者宣称你只是过于敏感了，这边就是想要刻意转移的感觉嘛。好，再看到空格3的前一句，他提到说，情感操纵者在骗人时，就算有相反的证据被拿出来，他们往往还是会坚持他们的谎言。那从语义上来看，最适合选项是 C, 用来进一步说明情感操纵者对受害者所造成的影响。他说 Consequently, the person being gaslit may eventually begin to question their own perception of reality, even when they know for a fact the gaslighter is lying. 因此，就算知道情感操纵者在说谎，受到情感操纵的人也许最后会开始质疑自己对现实的认知。好，那么第四个空格前一句呢，他有提到 It's important to know what to do in such a situation. 知道在这种情况下该怎么做是很重要的。然后空格的后一句又提到说，写日记也是一个有效方法，所以我们就可以推测这个空格是要提供对策，说明如何应对这种情况。那最符合的选项就是 A, since gaslighters tend to lie, try to save anything, pictures, text messages, or emails that can serve as evidence of the truth. 由于情感操纵者经常说谎，试着储存任何可以作为事实证明的东西，图片啊、简讯或者是电子邮件。好，那么以上是今天的讲解，我们要回顾今天的单字咯。
Confront. Gary confronted his wife about her spending habits. Inadequate. Ruby's success always made her younger sister feel inadequate. Insecure. When Raymond lost his job, he began to feel insecure about the future. Denial. We were unconvinced by his denial of responsibility. Commit. Sandy spent 9 years in jail for a crime that she didn't commit. Deceive. The salesman deceived us about the usefulness of the cleaning products. Contrary. Until I'm shown evidence to the contrary, I'll continue to believe that I'm right. Consequently. Perry broke his thumb. Consequently, he could no longer play the piano.
Well, everyone, today's article has come to an end, and I sure hope you enjoyed reading along with us. I am Roger.
I'm Helen.
See you next time.